What up, is Marcus with Dynasty Dads. We're going to be talking about some different things when it comes to drafts with different various leagues. And what I mean by that is when you have a 1 QB versus a super flex league, there is some drastic differences that if you don't understand these differences, you could make some huge mistakes. And honestly, these are mistakes that I did 5 years ago. So a couple of these mistakes, I didn't understand fully certain rules. And the biggest thing is you have to understand your rules inside and out. And if you don't, you need to talk to people that understand potentially your rules. Because when I get asked questions, there are so many different variables. And a lot of times I'm giving you a vacuum answer without much content and much detail. The first thing you need to know is what are the starting sizes of your roster? Do you have 1 QB, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end flex? Or are there like 4 flexes? There's rosters that I see all the time that'll have like 4 flexes, 4 running back, wide receiver flexes. There are some leagues that don't even have a tight end position. It is just a running back, wide receiver, tight end position spot, but you don't have to start a tight end. Well, that changes everything. It makes tight ends that are into this like 6 to 16 world nearly not, basically not valuable at all. So you have to understand roster starting sizes, and it makes a drastic difference. Again, there's a league that I have that has 3 wide receiver spots. It does make the depth of wide receivers a little bit more needy, and so it bumps these wide receivers just a hair up. And so when you're looking at, basically in a bullet, you're looking at Zach Charbonnet or you're looking at Josh Downs or something along those lines, and you are a team that needs wide receiver depth, there's teams that will likely go Josh Downs over Zach Charbonnet. There are leagues, and this is the second one, is the amount of owners. So important. I have a couple leagues that were 14, 16 teams. I have a couple of those, and they are super fun because I love teams. I love leagues that you got to find the diamonds in the rough. You got to go through and you got to pick apart. Gosh, I mean, 16 times 30, you're looking at, what is that, 480, but I don't know if I did the math right, 480 players. Like, the amount of in-depth detail that it takes to get some of these players is crucial. But what it also does is it amplifies certain positions. Tight end. If you have an average tight end, that is tight end 8 in my league. Tight end 8, tight end 9. If you're a 12-man team, your average position is tight end 6. That is completely different. You might have a tight end 3, like let's say you have George Kittle. You might be having tight end 3 versus a team that has tight end 16. And that might be their best tight end. And that significant advantage of having that versus a tight end like Trey McBride or something like that. You might have a drastic difference in starting rosters, and which makes these positionals like tight end, and sometimes even like quarterback, even in 1 QB leagues, it makes those high end, those Josh Allens, those Patrick Mahomes more valuable, and it makes these quarterbacks that are from 10 to 20 a little bit less valuable because you can still survive, and once you get past to a certain point, there's a lot of quarterbacks that are kind of all generally the same, and so the high-end elite talent ends up getting even pressed up higher. There's drastic difference. There's a lot of teams that won't, if you have 16 teams, there's a lot of teams that will go for the big players, the big star players, and they'll go stars and scrubs versus having an in-depth kind of full team. There's lots of different strategies here. So we have roster starting size, we have amount of owners, and then we have specific league settings that are crucial. And I'm going to talk about Superflex 1 quarterback because we are talking about a specific year in which Anthony Richardson, depending on league settings, can be your QB1 or QB2. And right now in Superflex, I would rather have Bryce Young. I think he's safer. It's by a hair, but he's safer. He's the player that I have more faith in fantasy-wise. His just floor and ceiling are a little bit less volatile. Then you have Anthony Richardson, which is the ultimate high or low upside play, which in 1 QB leagues, that is exactly the quarterback that you want. In 1 QB leagues, Anthony Richardson is by far the best QB that you want because Bryce Young, yes, he has that volatility, but if he's QB 10 and you have 12 teams, like that's not going to get you an advantage in a week-to-week basis. And so 1 quarterback versus Superflex is incredibly important when it comes to ranking some of these players. Also, tight end premium. If you have tight end premium, it just bumps some of these high-end elite talent tight ends. If you have the Mark Andrews of the world, so if you have the George Kittles and Travis Kelce's, you know how it is. It is a significant advantage. So what you're going to have is some of these elite tight ends like Dalton Kincaid, Michael Mayer, like those tight ends might get moved up quite a bit, especially Dalton Kincaid, first round draft pick. Like even like a Sam Laporta is going to get moved up. You're going to have these tight ends that you're going to want to risk it, because if you hit, you could be hitting on a diamond. And if you hit that diamond, man, you can trade that tight end and tight end premium for whatever you pretty much want. If Kyle Pitts ends up being a star, I mean, like there's times where Kyle Pitts, even after his rookie year, you were looking at him ahead of Jamar Chase. You were looking at him ahead of Justin Jefferson. Right now, he's behind those players because there are still some more question marks. But if you find that diamond, man, a young tight end that is a top 4 tight end, like you just don't see those tight ends happen. They're literally diamonds in the rough. So those are such important rules, and I wanted to discuss that because I've had so many questions. And so you have to look at your league settings and say, okay, what are best for my league? And then there's some leagues that have contracts to them as well. So it's Dynasty, but it's Dynasty to a certain extent. So you might only be Dynasty for 8 years, and then you have to get rid of a player. Or there's salary cap things where you have to fit a salary cap, which I played in one of those leagues before, where you literally have what the contract is in the NFL, and you have to basically manage a team kind of like a Madden GM. But you can have the person forever. You just have to fit them in like an auction salary cap style. And so, again, I love all these different league settings. In fact, I play in a lot of varieties because, honestly, I like trying to find those little kinks in the armor of what the rules are and then try to exploit the other owners, which is always fun to do, right? You got to try to outsmart the other people. All right, this is Marcus Dynasty with Ads. Peace out. We'll see you again tomorrow. We'll talk about more rookie time.